Hey soldiers, we've got two indications that the economy continues to slow. We have rising layoffs and rising bankruptcies. In fact, with the layoffs piece, you're going to see that we've got some employees out there taking pretty drastic measures to try to prevent themselves from being laid off. So let's jump right into this. U.S. corporate bankruptcies rose in October from the previous month. Now, we're going to talk about the corporate bankruptcies, but we're also going to talk about the personal bankruptcies, because as you see more corporate bankruptcies, of course, the personal bankruptcies will follow, because if you're reorganizing as a corporation and filing bankruptcy, there are some people that you're going to have to lay off, and that's going to have a trickle down effect in those people becoming delinquent on their obligations. Okay, so there were 37 corporate bankruptcy filings in October. That's up from 31 in September. As of October 31st, 312 companies had filed for bankruptcy in 2022, fewer than any other comparable period going back to at least 2010. Okay, let's be very specific about who we're talking about. We are not referencing one-off companies that are small private companies. Maybe the restaurant in your town, one-off restaurant, they closed down. We're not talking about them in this corporate bankruptcy definition. We're talking about public companies with shares traded on an exchange, or private companies with public debt, public bonds outstanding. We're also referencing those private companies with assets or liabilities in the $10 million or greater range. So we're talking about some pretty sizable companies when we talk about corporate bankruptcies. As you can see from the chart, yes, we had an increase October over September of 2022. But if you also check this out here, last October, you had 29 of those bankruptcies, 37 this year. So year over year, the figure is greater as well. Okay, as you can see, we're off the highs that we hit in 2010. We hit kind of a trough in 2014 and meandered in an upward direction since then up until 2021. Now remember, something very unique happened in 2020 where a lot of money hit the street. So that had a material effect on, giving people some latitude. And then the other thing, not just that they were flush with money, but creditors took a back seat. Remember, we had the mortgage moratorium, we had the rent moratorium, we had the student loan moratorium, although even if you file bankruptcy, student loans are not able to be included in that. But you had circumstances where, you had a lot of money, and then people just weren't coming to work to process the bills. We were in a different space. So 2021, was sort of an aberration. 2022, I hope we don't reach that 410. I don't think we will, because these numbers that we're looking at are through November 2nd. So I'm very hopeful that we won't reach 410 or higher, but we'll see what 2023 brings. These bankruptcies span various industries. So here the chart shows you the October filings. We've got some healthcare companies in there. We got some real estate companies in there. In terms of healthcare companies, you had an obstetrics office, so probably like a doctor's office. You have consumer staples, information technology, energy, communication services, industrial. So it kind of ran the gambit of different types of companies. It wasn't confined to any one sector, although industrials were hit the hardest. Now, when a company files bankruptcy, it doesn't mean that they're going away. It just means that they're reorganizing this debt. That is why sometimes people have to file bankruptcy too. And guess what? That's okay. There used to be a stigma around bankruptcy that, you were just a bad, horrible person if you file for bankruptcy. Well, that is because, these types of paradigms exist because the consumer is not supposed to be able to use the full panoply of financial tools that are out there in U.S. code. Okay, if we do it, it's somehow a bad thing, but corporations can do it all day long. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that you go out and file bankruptcy, but if you are ever put in a position where you have to, then just remember some of the largest companies on earth have had to do it, and they bounce back, and it's designed for you to do the same thing, to bounce back. Because keep in mind, creditors want you in the game. Banks, credit card companies, they're not making any money off of you if you're not in the game. So bankruptcy can be thought of as a reorganization. Now, I wanted to put that out there because what we're seeing is insolvencies, consumer insolvencies, they're starting to rise. And we've just gone over the levels for the corporations in America. U.S. Chapter 13 bankruptcies are rising. The uptick shows the impact of the roll-off of the COVID era fiscal support, of course. This chart shows you look at that 2020 period where bankruptcies, again, these are personal bankruptcies. They just fell right off the charts, right off a cliff because, again, we were flush with money. Government was handing out money to anyone with a pulse, and a lot of people without one ended up getting checks as well somehow. And creditors, they just, were in a mode where they weren't necessarily collecting anywhere near as aggressively as they normally did. The flow of federal dollars that started soon after the pandemic helped some Americans stave off bankruptcy. Absolutely. They might have been right there and then got enough money to be able to pay off some bills, and then got a mortgage moratorium that helped them take a breath and gave Americans some breathing room. All right, this article from Axios goes on to say, don't fret about the state of the American consumer just yet. Bankruptcy filings remain far below pre-pandemic norms. And again, that is because this money that was injected into the system by the federal government still working its way out of the system. So again, just refer to the chart. Look at that drop. That was pretty precipitous. Right? So you've still got money in the system that is working its way out, and it's working its way out because of inflation. People got to spend more on food. They got to spend more on everything. Remember, in 2020, everybody was staying home. Nobody was filling up their tank with gas every week. They didn't need to. They weren't going anywhere. But now, not only do they need to do that, but they're facing higher energy costs to heat their homes here in the Northern Hemisphere as we go into winter because of, we've covered that ad nauseum with the energy crisis brought on by war in Ukraine and green policies. So as interest rates increase, of course, unfortunately, we're probably going to see more of the bankruptcies starting to occur on that personal and the corporate level. And this is not unique to the United States. And I just want to say one thing before we move to another country, and I'll show you how what's happening there as well. The United States of America, let's talk briefly about immigration policy. The reason why, because make no mistake about it, Republicans and Democrats want laxed immigration rules. And the reason they want that is because when you have people come to your country, you have consumers coming into your country, okay? And what we're doing is we're importing consumers and taxpayers. All right, as you can see from this chart, U.S. birth rates are declining. We see in the era after World War II, they ticked up a bit, but then, in the 1960s, they started coming down again, and they've been doing that ever since. This is why the Chamber of Commerce, basically, the Republicans, the business owners, I should say, and the Democrats both want immigration to this country because they want people coming in here. Because otherwise, with these declines, you're not going to be able to sustain the economy as we've known it. There's no way to do it. So while America has seen a 27% year-over-year increase in personal bankruptcies, Canada has actually seen a 22.5% increase in personal bankruptcies. So this is something that is affecting more than just America. It's affecting quite a few different countries. And we're seeing it have an impact right at the time where Interest rates are rising and stimulus money is finally running out. We're seeing this all across the Western world. 28,000 UK citizens in personal insolvency amid cost of living crisis. So again, we're seeing, they're getting hit with these exorbitant energy bills because of their energy policy and because of, tighter supply constraints. Nearly 28,000 personal insolvencies were recorded in Britain over the last 3 months as inflationary pressures and the cost of living crisis take their toll. According to the Insolvency Service on Friday, there were 27,927 individual insolvencies in the quarter to September, while it also saw an 18% rise in registration from people seeking breathing space from debt. This was a 5% fall compared to the previous quarter, but was 2% higher than the same period a year ago. So all of these countries, the UK, Canada, United States, are seeing bankruptcy filings up in that 20% or more range. So that's quite troubling because the consumer is slowing down. These are consumer economies, and the consumer just can't take it anymore. Inflation has taken its toll, and we've got inflation numbers that are going to come out on tomorrow. Today, for you, we're going to do a live on Thursday to kind of talk about that. But it shows no sign of slowing down. We are still projected to be up above 7%, maybe even higher. We'll see, which would be troubling. So the Inflation Reduction Act, now they're saying, oh, that's going to help. That's going to help next year. You thought it was going to help. No, it's going to help next year. It's not going to help next year. They said that to get past the election. Now you'll probably never hear about it again, except on the Soldiers of Finance channel. They also want you to believe that somehow climate change regulation is not going to continue to hurt the energy industry. I maintain we need to develop new technologies because, after all, oil and gas, they are finite. And we have an excellent opportunity to develop new sources of energy that can sustain the society in perpetuity. Okay, sustainable sources, the buzzword. But at the same time, we need to wean ourselves off of that. We cannot, we're demonstrating, all of the facts are there showing you that if we continue upon this path, then, I don't know, the consumer definitely will not be able to continue to support these economies. All right, take a look at this chart. You can see the delinquency rate on credit card loans for all commercial banks. We saw that it hit a low in the second quarter of 2021, and then it's been ticking up from there, correspondent with the spike in oil prices and also higher inflation generally. So people are they've been relying on those credit cards to bridge the gap between wages that are down here and prices that are up here. And so we're starting to see delinquencies, people be late on their credit card payments. We're starting to see that tick up as the balances on these credit cards tick up. All right, May 2021, we see from the chart the credit card loan balances start to spike. This is correspondent with the delinquencies as well. People, again, trying to bridge that gap. Guys, look around, see what you can get rid of in terms of expenses. You got to hunker down, okay, because we're going to go through this storm. And these policies will continue, okay? We did a video. I want you to watch it. Watch the video where we're talking about how diesel prices are never coming down. And we give you the reasons why. And if diesel prices never come down, then that means prices at the grocery store, prices at the gas pump, prices at the clothing store, all of those will stay elevated. Look at the video and find out why. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.